Hello everyone, Tara Miller here. I am going to show you a great alternative to DPNs or double pointed knitting needles. A great alternative to using double pointed knitting needles to knit small diameter uh, in the round knitting. I personally do not like to use double pointed knitting needles because there's so many of them and you're always knitting like 4 or 5 stitches and then moving on to the next one. So I prefer to use 2 circular needles, and today I'm going to show you how to do that, and it'll look like this. It's great. Okay, to get started you're going to need 2 cable needles of any length in the same size needle. So I have 2 size 10 needles right here, and to cast on, what you're going to do is you're just going to take 1 cable needle and you're just going to cast on, you're just going to take 1 cable needle and you're going to cast on just like you usually do. So we're going to cast on about 20 stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5, 20. And you're just going to cast them all onto 1 needle. And then you'll take your second needle and you'll just move the last 10 onto your second needle. And that's how you split up your needles. You can also use this method for double pointed knitting needles, so that way you don't have to cast on a few stitches onto one and then cast on to the next one. You can just cast them all onto 1 needle and then split them up, so it makes it a lot easier. So we have 2, 4, 6, 9, 10, 10. Okay, then I like to move them all into the middle. And then we will move these down to the needle and leave these hanging in the middle. So it'll leave them nice and flexible. Then you want to make sure that your stitches are not twisted. And use the same needle. It just makes it easier because the cable hangs a certain way and it just makes it easier to maneuver. And then you just start knitting. And you can pull your first one tight, but you don't want to pull it too tight because then it'll make the loop as narrow as the cable, and then once you try to move this from the cable onto your needle, it'll be really tight and it'll make it really difficult. So I just pull it just a little bit, and usually I knit the second one, and before I push it off the needle I tighten it on the second one because it holds it better. And then you knit to the end. We only have 10, so it'll go really fast. Alright, and you push it down onto the middle of the cable, and then you take your second one and you pull it up. And again, make sure none of your stitches are twisted, and you only have to pay attention to that on the first round. And you grab this one, the matching needle, and then you start knitting again. And you can pull it just a little tight so you don't get that ladder. And the ladder is the loose stitches in between. You usually get that in circular knitting where the beginning of the round is. And it usually comes out in blocking, but you can prevent most of it by just pulling on your stitch just a little bit, to tighten it up just a little bit, because you can see the first stitch is always a little loose. So that's the beginning of the round, and it really makes it easy to determine where the beginning of your round is, because it's always at the beginning where you switch needles. And see, I pulled it a little tight there, so it's a little hard to get it back on. But we'll learn our lesson the next time. And then you just keep knitting around and around, and it is a great way to do small diameter knitting for baby clothes and toys and sweater necks, and sometimes even scarves, like if you do a double knit scarf, it can be a very small diameter. So when you keep on knitting, you'll end up with something like this. And I use this method when I made the Dangercraft Murphy dog that I modified to look like my dog. And it's also great for sleeves and making all kinds of toys and just anything, finishing off hats, anything small diameter. So this is my preferred method for small diameter, and I think you'll love it too. And it just takes a little bit of practice, but it turns out really great, and it makes it so much easier than double pointed knitting needles. So I'll see you guys next time.